Although not every movie released this year so far has been a smash hit, it's nevertheless been a pretty damn solid time for films regardless, so many of the most anticipated movies of the year finally delivering on or above sky-high expectations. That said, not every movie can be perfect, and in some cases, even the films we hold near and dear to our hearts may have a scene or two that register just a smidge on the WTF scale. For these 2023 films, that was certainly the case. So I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and here are 8 WTF scenes and otherwise awesome recent movies. Number 8. Name-dropping JFK like he's an MCU Easter egg. Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is a typically meticulous offering from the filmmaker, submerging the viewer in 3 hours of dread, remorse, and anguish as Cillian Murphy's character creates the atomic bomb and then is hounded for alleged communist sympathies during the Second Red Scare in the 1950s. Still, despite being met with praise, a few scenes within Oppenheimer have raised a few eyebrows, namely the introduction of Oppenheimer's famous quotation of the Bhagavad Gita, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," which comes during a sweaty meet-up between him and Florence Pugh's Jean Tatlock. Now, while I would argue that quotation appearing there makes sense as a means of foreshadowing Oppenheimer's guilt over Tatlock's death, there is one other bit of point-at-the-screen, mouth-agape bait that feels decidedly weirder. Late on in the film, as Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss is fighting to be appointed Secretary of Commerce, his chances are dealt a killing blow by testimony decrying his treatment of Oppenheimer and the Atomic Energy Commission post-World War II. The Senate subsequently votes on his appointment, with then Massachusetts Senator and future US President John Fitzgerald Kennedy one of the more significant nays. The issue is, JFK is kind of immaterial to the story of Strauss and Oppenheimer, just another faceless senator who contributes to the destruction of the former, and yet Nolan draws eye-rolling focus to the name via Alden Ehrenreich's delivery. Number 7. The abrupt ending. John Wick Chapter 4. Far be it from me to be hypercritical when worshipping at the altar of Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski, but is it little wonder there was so much back and forth on the ending for John Wick Chapter 4 when it came so abruptly? Now, to be clear, the scene where John takes his wounds and lies down looking at the sunrise over Paris is beautiful. About as perfect a send-off for the character as he can get, but it's punctuated by a scene that caused a fair bit of confusion. A small funeral being held for John attended by Winston, the Bowery King, and John's puppy, the latter most of which seems to perk up towards something off camera. And then the credits roll, and it was all a bit vague and undefinitive. When John Wick Chapter 4 was first announced, it was revealed that there would be a 5th film as well. This potential two-parter was condensed into just one film, however, and Lionsgate hasn't made secret that it would be willing for a 5th John Wick film to get made, with the most recent entry netting a lot of delicious moolah over its box office run. Take that into account with the fact that 2 endings for Chapter 4 were shot, one where John lives and his puppy's motion leads to concrete proof of his survival, and it's hard not to feel as if the film's ending is a tad wishy-washy. John's demise on the steps of Paris was so great, but the truncated epilogue undermines that send-off just ever so slightly. Number 6. The closing movie montage. Babylon. Babylon is undeniably one of the most divisive movies released over the past year, some seeing it as indulgent and weirdly sentimental, and others hailing it as a roaring throwback to one of our current great filmmakers. It's a film with its fair share of oddball moments, but nothing in Damien Chazelle's decadent examination of Hollywood's early golden age really prepares you for the ending. Babylon ends with protagonist Manny, Diego Calva, returning to Los Angeles after a 20-year absence and watching a screening of the newly released Singing in the Rain. Manny is eventually moved to tears by the film, and I mean, relatable, Singing in the Rain is a masterpiece, at which point Chazelle transitions into a montage of Hollywood's most technologically innovative works of cinema over the last century plus. It's no surprise that some found it somewhat strange seeing clips of The Matrix, Tron, Terminator 2, and especially Avatar at the end of a 3-hour period movie, a choice that was criticized as jarring by some viewers and critics. Number 5. The Pope's Exorcist Cinematic Universe. The Pope's Exorcist. Now, The Pope's Exorcist is not awesome in the same way as a John Wick 4 or an Oppenheimer, but it also has Russell Crowe doing a fun little Italian accent on a Lambretta scooter while he tackles demonic possession. Oh, and he also wears Ferrari socks. I could watch like 5 movies of this guy riding around to Faith No More and putting the stomp on demons. Hilariously, this is a conceit the film commits to in the final scene. Crow's Gabriele Amort returns to the Vatican alongside Father Escobel, where they get taken to a secret archive full of deliciously demonic artifacts. They're then informed that there are 199 evil sites for them to head to. Pope's Exorcist Cinematic Universe, here we come. On a slightly more serious note, while I could not be happier that Crow is finally getting a franchise with a sequel already being announced, for the life of me, I cannot believe the monkey's poorness of it all. Like, Crow doesn't get a sequel to Master and Commander or The Nice Guys. He gets the Pope's Exorcist. It's such delicious nonsense, I can't even lie and say I won't be seated for all of these. As long as I keep getting fun photos of Crow living his best life in Italy and doing his funny accent, I'm there. Number 4, making Michael Jordan a background character. Air. Air is far more entertaining than any movie about the origins of a shoe ever should be. Although director Ben Affleck did make one rather bizarre creative decision that reverberates throughout the entire film. Despite Air being centered around Nike's efforts to strike a deal with Michael Jordan to produce their now iconic Air Jordan basketball shoe, Jordan himself is relegated to the role of background character in his own story. Affleck instead focuses on Nike dealing with Michael's parents, especially his firmly protective mother Dolores, while Michael himself appears in just a few brief scenes. Yet that's not what's truly weird about it. It's that Affleck very deliberately avoids showing Jordan's face, as played by Damian Young, almost every time we see him, even often awkwardly blocking and framing shots to have him face away from the camera, whether it makes visual sense or not. Affleck defended his choice by claiming that Jordan is simply too statuesque to have a major focus in the movie, which is fair enough, but there surely had to be a less weird way to shoot around him. Instead, it comes off as unnecessarily distracting. Like, hello, Michael Jordan Blofeld. Someone get this guy a cat to menacingly stroke as Matt Damon invents the shoes or something. Number 3, the final confrontation, Scream 6. In many ways, Scream 6 is arguably the most daringly brutal entry in the franchise yet. Taking the core 4 plus Gale and returning Scream 4 alum Kirby Reed out of Woodsboro and into New York, the 6th Scream features some of the best chase scenes and set pieces in the series yet. The killer opening, the bodega shootout, the apartment fire ladder bit, the subway scene, they're all relentlessly grim and fatalistic, with plenty of gnarly and upsetting deaths. Unfortunately, Scream 6 is also in the running for having the worst final act of any of the sequels yet, including a disappointing Ghostface reveal and motivation, more reiterative Sam inheriting Billy Loomis's murder genes stuff, and some comical deaths, both fake out and otherwise. I love you, Chad, but how the hell did you survive that stabbing? He gets pin-cushioned and he's just like, well, here I am, getting stabbed. After all the mystery and commentary on conspiracy culture and maybe even the idea of a ghost face that hates movies, the reveal that Wayne is Richie's dad and out to avenge him with his family felt like a bit of an anticlimax. If I'm being brutally honest, the idea of Kirby being the killer was actually more interesting, as she'd have more to do than just be a cop? I don't know. Scream 5's ending felt so punchy, whereas the finale for 6 was a mixture of more of the same, only with a less interesting reveal. Number 2, Rocky doesn't call Donnie after his mother dies. Creed 3. Creed 3 featured the death of Adonis Creed's adoptive mother, Mary Ann, played by Cecilia Rashad, which, while a relatively tacked-on affection in its own right, only drew further attention to Rocky Balboa's and Sylvester Stallone's total absence from the story. Though it's absolutely fair for Rocky to be left in the periphery at this stage in the story, especially after Creed 2 gave him such a great send-off, it does feel rather off that Rocky doesn't seem to call up Donnie after his mother's death, nor is he seen at her funeral. Sure, you can argue that the pair had an emotional heart-to-heart off-screen, but a 90-second over-the-phone cameo from Stallone would have added just a little bit extra weight to the whole thing. Now, in regards to why Stallone sat Creed 3 out, the Rocky creator reportedly wasn't a fan of the darker direction of the film, and was also in a battle with producer Irwin Winkler regarding the rights to the series. Jordan was also keen to place the spotlight firmly on Adonis Creed after the previous 2 entries was so immersed within the series past, which again, totally fair. fair. Creed 3 is still a great film, but a small nod to Sly would have gone some way in addressing the big Italian stallion in the room, or rather, the one that wasn't. And number 1, the jarring cliffhanger, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a good movie, debatedly one of the biggest of the year, and it's also a film which left millions of unsuspecting viewers groaning when those dreaded words flashed up on screen at the end. To be continued. Oof. Though it was announced in late 2021 that Across the Spider-Verse would be a 2-part movie, it's fair to say this may have been forgotten by a fair few in the audience, especially as Sony quite mischievously ditched the Part 1 from its title, instead renaming the third film to Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. And so, when Across the Spider-Verse reached its climax of Miles Morales ending up in Earth 42, an alt universe where his father is dead and another Miles is the Prowler, while the Spot prepares to attack the multiverse and the other heroes gear up to save Miles, it's a bit of an abrupt bummer when it ends on a cliffhanger. Such is the price of 2-part movies, and though it initially looked as if we'd only have to wait until next March for the third movie, it seems highly likely that it will be delayed to 2025 or even potentially 2026, if rumors are to be believed. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more if you're new. Either way, I've been Ewan, this has been What Culture, and I will hopefully catch you next time. Bye!